Hello everyone, Hive Power Genetics here, and I just wanted to share a really easy and reliable way to clone your vegetables, and it really doesn't cost very much money at all, and it's really simple, and it really works. So let's go ahead and get started, and all you really need is, you know, some piece of genetic medium, just a nice cut off of your plant, and we have a nice garden variety tomato right here. And you can clone just about anything from the garden. Just make sure you take a nice clean cut with a pair of clean scissors. Make sure you don't rip it off with your fingers so that you have a nice clean cut at the end of the vegetable. Go ahead and get a nice sharp knife that's clean and a spoon, and get some kind of container to clone in. And go ahead and get some rooting hormone. It's also called cloning powder. And you can find this at any kind of gardening store, probably even a hardware store. It's pretty easy to find and it's really cheap. Okay, and also get some kind of tin foil or saran wrap. I like to reuse the tops of yogurt containers and just sterilize that because it's the perfect size and it's circular. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the top onto that water container. Of course, I'm going to put some cloning gel in there first. Be careful with this stuff. Make sure you don't breathe it in, and definitely make sure that no one drinks it. So don't leave this stuff sitting around. You don't need too much. I would say about a quarter of a teaspoon. And it doesn't mix very well, so don't be surprised if you have to move it around a lot and maybe push it against the side of the container a little bit. Eventually it will mix together with the water though, so be patient. I recommend just stirring it around slowly. And this is going to make sure that you have a lot higher chance of success with cloning your vegetable cutting. And I highly recommend, mixing up some cloning powder into the water. If you just use water, it might not root. So say if you have like 20 clones, this way most of them will root. It's like 18 or 17 of them. If you just use water, only a couple of them will actually root. So these chemicals really help out a lot, and it's pretty basic plant hormones, so it's not going to have a bad environmental impact as far as I'm aware. And there are organic things you can use. You can definitely use some aloe vera plants, and you can achieve the same kind of results. This just lasts a lot longer and doesn't cost much compared to the aloe vera gel. There's a couple different things that you can use that work very well. I prefer the cloning powder. Okay, so now I'm going to put the lid on top. Remember, it's sterilized, so if you use tin foil or saran wrap, make sure it's really clean, and make sure you really get the lid on there. Make sure it's airtight, and you can always use like a rubber band or something like that, or some tape. There we go. So notice there's no holes at the bottom like a normal pot, but that's okay, and as long as you're careful, it's just water, So there's not really anything that's going to go moldy as long as there's not a big hole. There's just a little hole. So poke a little hole with the knife and maybe spin it sideways a little bit so there's a little bit of an opening. And then you can always go back over with more tin foil or saran wrap, or just tape it over. And you can make it so that there's no hole at all so that no bacteria can get in there. Because the plant could and the roots could go moldy because it is organic matter in water, which can breed bacteria. So, you can put a little bit extra, and it also helps the plant stay, so it's not falling around like this. Because you want to put it under lights, obviously, after it's done. So you can see how you'd want to put a little bit more tinfoil on there. Cover it up. Here, I'll show you. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's unbelievably simple. It'll probably cost less than $10 altogether. And it works. And I'm going to show you that it really works. I have some roots ready so that you don't have to just take my word for it. I'll show you that this low-tech, cheap cloning option really produces some amazing results. And I swear by this cloning powder. You can use any brand that has good reviews. So you can go ahead and, put more pieces on there. That looks very nice. So you can see it's a really simple system. And then you need to cover up the side of the container. So you can either get some black electrical tape, which is pretty inexpensive, and just cover it around through. You can leave the bottom uncovered because the roots will grow towards the light. And if they're in the dark, they'll just grow downwards. And you can also just get like a bigger container and just drop it down into the container. Check that out. That looks really nice. There's your clone. And I'll show you some roots right now that look really nice and they're really flourishing. You just have to wait about a week, and then over the second week, you'll really start to see the roots growing. And when they're big enough, you just plant them into a little pot and you have your clone for probably only $5 or $10. You can make probably like 100 clones at least. So there you go. Let's take a look at some roots. All right, we've got some very nice tomato roots here. You can see that there are plenty of roots coming out. All those little white spikes are going to be larger roots. And I would say that these clones have about 2 or 3 more days. And the roots should be spread out quite a bit more. And some people refer to them as fish bones. They're already starting to look like little fish bones. And they're going to grow out and they kind of spike out in different directions. They're really nice looking. And they're going to be ready to plant in a couple days. So you can see the cloning powder really does work. And there's no mold or anything like that. We're going to stick these clones back into the homemade cloner and we'll be ready to go. So good luck on all your clones. But it's really easy, so you shouldn't have a problem. But make sure you check them often. Leave them in the container. Don't take them out like I just did to show you. Because you can see them through the water. And I also recommend you swirl the container around because the cloning powder will settle very quickly. So if the water looks clear, shake it up slowly and carefully. and mix the cloning powder back into the water. And you should have about 100% success rate. Every once in a while, it'll grow too slow, and you can just throw those clones out and replace them with new ones. So, enjoy your vegetables, everybody. Thanks for watching.